I'm Maya Rodriguez, 29, and 6 months ago my former manager was begging me for a job at the agency I built from nothing. The same woman who told me I was too emotional and that my creative ideas were off-brand was sitting across from me in my corner office, desperately trying to convince me she'd be a perfect fit for my team. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and honestly, watching her squirm was the sweetest revenge I could have asked for. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Growing up in a traditional Mexican-American household in East Los Angeles, creativity wasn't exactly encouraged as a career path. My parents wanted stability, security, something they could brag about to their friends at church. Marketing seemed like a reasonable compromise between my artistic impulses and their practical concerns. I threw myself into studying consumer psychology, brand strategy, and digital marketing, graduating summa cum laude with a degree that I thought would open doors to a world where creativity and commerce could coexist beautifully. My first job out of college was at Sterling Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm in downtown LA that specialized in what they called traditional brand management. The office was all glass and chrome, with motivational posters that felt more like warnings than inspiration. "Stay on message," one read. "Consistency is key," declared another. From day one, I should have recognized the signs that this place would slowly crush my soul. But I was young, eager, and desperately wanted to prove myself in the professional world. The creative department was run by Margaret Whitfield, a woman in her late 40s who wore her corporate success like armor. She had climbed the ladder by playing it safe, delivering campaigns that were competent but forgettable, and she expected the same from everyone under her supervision. Margaret had this way of looking at you when you presented an idea that made you feel like you just suggested setting the building on fire. Her signature move was the slow blink, followed by a condescending smile that never reached her eyes. For the first few months, I tried to fit in. I presented safe concepts, followed the brand guidelines to the letter, and nodded enthusiastically during meetings where we discussed the importance of maintaining brand integrity. But creativity has a way of demanding expression, like water finding cracks in concrete. I started sketching campaign ideas during lunch breaks, developing concepts that felt alive and authentic, ideas that could actually connect with real people instead of just checking boxes on a corporate checklist. The breaking point came during a pitch meeting for Zenith Wellness, a boutique fitness studio chain that catered to millennials and Gen Z. The client had specifically requested something fresh and disruptive that would help them stand out in the crowded wellness market. I had been working on a campaign concept for weeks, something that played with the idea of wellness as rebellion against toxic productivity culture. The tagline was, "Sweat the small stuff," and the visuals featured real people in real moments of struggle and triumph, not the usual stock photo perfection that dominated fitness advertising. I walked into that conference room with my presentation loaded and my confidence high. The client, Sarah Chen, was the kind of entrepreneur who had built her business from the ground up and wasn't afraid to take risks. She was exactly the kind of person who would appreciate bold, creative choices. Margaret sat at the head of the table, her laptop open, already looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Before Maya presents her concept," Margaret began, her voice carrying that particular tone of manufactured enthusiasm that made my skin crawl, "I want to show you what we've developed based on your brief." She clicked through a presentation that was painfully generic, featuring the usual suspects of wellness marketing: sunrise yoga poses, green smoothies, and inspirational quotes in elegant fonts. The tagline was, "Elevate your everyday," which sounded like it had been generated by an AI trained exclusively on boring marketing campaigns. Sarah's face remained politely neutral, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. This wasn't what she had asked for. This wasn't what her brand needed. When Margaret finished, she turned to me with that fake smile and said, "Maya has prepared an alternative approach, though I should mention that it's quite different from our usual brand strategy." I launched into my presentation, watching Sarah's expression change from polite interest to genuine excitement as I walked through the concept. Sweat the Small Stuff wasn't just about fitness. It was about reclaiming your relationship with stress, with perfectionism, with the crushing weight of modern expectations. The campaign featured real stories from real people, authentic moments of vulnerability and strength. One ad showed a woman crying after a workout, not from exhaustion, but from the emotional release of finally doing something just for herself. Another featured a man in his 50s trying yoga for the first time, wobbling and laughing at his own limitations. "This is exactly what we need," Sarah said, leaning forward in her chair. "This speaks to who our clients actually are, not who we think they should be. The authenticity is incredible. When can we start production?" I felt a surge of validation that was quickly crushed by Margaret's response. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Sarah, but I have some concerns about this direction. It's quite emotional, and I'm not sure it aligns with established wellness marketing best practices. We want to make sure we're not alienating potential customers with content that might be seen as too intense or off-brand." The room fell silent. Sarah looked confused, glancing between Margaret and me as if trying to understand why someone would argue against exactly what she had requested. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger, but I tried to maintain my professional composure. "I understand your concerns, Margaret," I said carefully. "But Sarah specifically asked for something disruptive. The emotional connection is what makes this campaign authentic. It's what will make people stop scrolling and actually engage with the brand." Margaret's expression hardened. "Maya, I think you're letting your personal feelings cloud your professional judgment. This isn't a place for creatives who can't separate their emotions from strategic thinking. Our job is to deliver results, not to make art." Those words hit me like a physical blow. This isn't a place for creatives. The phrase echoed in my head as I watched Sarah's face fall, her excitement replaced by confusion and disappointment. Margaret continued with her practiced corporate speak about brand safety and market testing, but I wasn't really listening anymore. Something inside me had fundamentally shifted. After the meeting, Sarah pulled me aside in the hallway. "I don't understand what just happened in there," she said quietly. "Your concept was brilliant. It's exactly what we need to differentiate ourselves in the market. Why wouldn't your manager want to move forward with it?" I looked around to make sure Margaret wasn't within earshot before responding. "Because it's different. Because it takes risks. Because it might actually work. And that's somehow more terrifying than playing it safe and failing quietly." Sarah studied my face for a moment, then pulled out her business card. "If you ever decide you want to work with someone who appreciates bold thinking, give me a call. I'm serious about this campaign, and I'd rather work with the person who created it than the person who's afraid of it." I took her card, feeling like I was accepting more than just a piece of paper. I was accepting the possibility of a different kind of professional life, one where creativity wasn't treated like a liability. The next few weeks at Sterling Associates were torture. Margaret made it clear that my outburst during the Zenith meeting had been noted in my file. She scheduled more frequent check-ins, scrutinized every piece of work I produced, and made subtle comments about my attitude during team meetings. I felt like I was being slowly suffocated by corporate mediocrity. The final straw came during a brainstorming session for a local restaurant group. The client wanted to launch a campaign celebrating the diversity of their neighborhood locations, each restaurant reflecting the cultural character of its community. I suggested a concept called Flavors of Home that would feature actual families from these neighborhoods, sharing stories about their culinary traditions and how food connected them to their heritage. "That's nice, Maya," Margaret said with that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. "But I think we need to be careful about making assumptions about what people want to share publicly. Not everyone is comfortable being so personal about their background. Maybe we should stick with professional food photography and some tasteful cultural elements." I felt something snap inside me. "So instead of celebrating the actual diversity of these communities, you want to use stock photos and generic cultural symbols? That's tokenism, not authenticity." The room went quiet. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Maya, I need to see you in my office after this meeting." I spent the next hour being lectured about professionalism, team dynamics, and the importance of following established protocols. Margaret spoke in corporate buzzwords that felt designed to strip all meaning from the conversation. She talked about growth opportunities and areas for improvement while making it clear that my job was hanging by a thread. "I'm going to be direct with you, Maya," she said finally. "Your creative instincts aren't necessarily wrong, but they don't fit with our company culture. You seem to think that being emotional and personal is the same thing as being innovative. But our clients need consistency and reliability. If you can't adapt to our standards, maybe you should consider whether this is the right environment for you." That night, I sat in my studio apartment staring at Sarah's business card. I thought about all the campaigns I'd created that had never seen the light of day. All the ideas that had been watered down or scrapped entirely because they were too risky or off-brand. I thought about the kind of marketing professional I'd dreamed of becoming versus the one I was slowly turning into under Margaret's management. I called Sarah the next morning. "I was hoping you'd reach out," she said when I explained my situation. "I've been thinking about our conversation, and I have a proposition for you. What if we worked together directly? I know you're still employed, but I have other business owner friends who are looking for fresh marketing approaches. If you're interested in freelancing, I could introduce you to some people who would appreciate your creative vision." The idea of freelancing had never seriously occurred to me. I'd always assumed I needed the stability of a traditional job, the security of a steady paycheck and health insurance. But as Sarah talked about the freedom to choose your clients, to work on projects that excited you, to build something of your own, I felt a spark of possibility that I hadn't experienced in months. I started small, working evenings and weekends on projects Sarah connected me with. There was a local bakery that wanted to tell the story of their family recipes, a sustainable fashion boutique that needed help communicating their environmental mission, and a mindfulness app that wanted to reach people who were burned out by traditional wellness messaging. Each project allowed me to dig deeper into authentic storytelling, to create campaigns that felt honest and human. The work was challenging in the best possible way. Instead of fighting against corporate constraints, I was collaborating with clients who valued creativity and authenticity. We developed campaigns that featured real customers, told genuine stories, and took creative risks that actually paid off. The bakery's Grandmother's Recipes campaign went viral locally, with people sharing their own family food stories. The fashion boutique's True Cost campaign, which showed the real environmental impact of fast fashion, generated more engagement than their previous year of marketing combined. Word started spreading through networks of small business owners and entrepreneurs. People began reaching out directly, asking if I could help them tell their brand stories in ways that felt authentic and compelling. I found myself working with clients who were passionate about their businesses, who weren't afraid to show vulnerability or take creative risks. 3 months after I started freelancing, I was making more money than I had at Sterling Associates. More importantly, I was creating work that I was proud of, campaigns that actually connected with people and drove real results for businesses I believed in. The difference between corporate marketing and authentic brand storytelling became crystal clear. One was about manipulation, and the other was about connection. I knew I had to make a choice. I could continue trying to balance my soul-crushing day job with my fulfilling freelance work, or I could take the leap and commit fully to building something of my own. The decision became easier when Margaret called me into her office on a Tuesday morning in March. "Maya, I've been reviewing your recent performance, and I'm concerned about your level of engagement with your assigned projects. You seem distracted, and frankly, your work hasn't been meeting our standards lately." She was right about the distraction part. It was hard to care about creating generic campaigns for corporate clients when I was spending my free time working on projects that actually mattered. But hearing her criticism felt like liberation rather than condemnation. "You're absolutely right, Margaret," I said, surprising her with my agreement. "I haven't been engaged with the work here because I've realized that this environment isn't a good fit for my skills or my values. I'm giving you my 2 weeks' notice." Margaret's carefully composed expression cracked slightly. "You're quitting? Maya, I think you're making a mistake. The job market is competitive, and you're giving up a stable position for what? Freelancing? That's not a sustainable career path." I felt a calm confidence that I'd never experienced in that office before. "I appreciate your concern, but I've actually been building a client base over the past few months. I'm ready to commit to running my own agency." "Your own agency?" Margaret laughed, but there was something sharp in the sound. "Maya, you have no idea what it takes to run a business. You're a creative, not a businesswoman. You'll be back here within 6 months, assuming we have a position available." That conversation replayed in my head as I cleaned out my desk and said goodbye to the few colleagues I'd actually connected with. Margaret's dismissive attitude about my business prospects only fueled my determination to prove her wrong. I wasn't just quitting a job. I was betting on myself and my vision for what marketing could be when it prioritized authenticity over safety. The first month of running my own agency, which I named Authentic Collective, was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I worked from my apartment, converted my dining room into a home office, and threw myself into building systems and processes that could support a growing client base. Sarah became not just my first major client, but also an informal mentor, introducing me to other entrepreneurs and small business owners who were looking for marketing that felt genuine and compelling. The breakthrough came when I landed a campaign for Verde Valley Farms, a sustainable agriculture collective that supplied restaurants and farmers markets throughout Southern California. Their previous marketing had been earnest but boring, featuring the usual suspects of farm-to-table imagery without any real story or personality. The founder, Carlos Martinez, was a former corporate executive who had left his job to pursue regenerative farming practices, and his passion for environmental sustainability was infectious. Together, we developed a campaign called Grow Forward that told the story of transformation, both of the land and of the people who chose to support sustainable agriculture. Instead of just showing beautiful vegetables, we filmed Carlos and his team talking about why they made the career change, what they learned from the failures and successes of their first growing seasons, and how customers could be part of a larger movement toward environmental responsibility. The campaign launched across social media platforms with a strategy that prioritized authentic engagement over vanity metrics. We created content that educated people about sustainable farming practices, shared behind-the-scenes footage of the actual work involved in regenerative agriculture, and highlighted the stories of restaurants and families who were making conscious choices about their food sources. The results were incredible. Verde Valley Farms saw a 300% increase in direct-to-consumer sales within the first month of the campaign launch. Their social media following grew from a few hundred to over 50,000 engaged followers. More importantly, they became a recognized voice in the sustainable agriculture movement, with Carlos being invited to speak at conferences and participate in panel discussions about the future of farming. The success of the Verde Valley Farms campaign established Authentic Collective as an agency that could deliver both creative excellence and measurable results. Word spread through entrepreneur networks, and I found myself turning down potential clients because I couldn't handle the volume of inquiries. It was time to start thinking about building a team. I hired my first employee, Jessica Park, a recent graduate from Art Center College of Design who had been struggling to find creative opportunities at traditional agencies. She brought a fresh perspective on visual storytelling and an intuitive understanding of social media culture that complemented my strategic approach. Together, we developed a creative process that balanced artistic vision with business objectives, always keeping authentic connection at the center of everything we created. Our client roster grew to include innovative businesses across various industries. A mental health startup that wanted to destigmatize therapy, a sustainable fashion brand that manufactured clothing from recycled materials, a food truck collective that celebrated immigrant culinary traditions, and a wellness retreat center that focused on healing rather than Instagram-worthy aesthetics. Each project allowed us to explore different aspects of authentic brand storytelling while building a reputation for campaigns that actually moved people to action. 6 months after leaving Sterling Associates, Authentic Collective had grown to a team of 5 people working out of a converted warehouse space in the Arts District. We had revenue projections that exceeded anything I'd imagined when I first started freelancing, and more importantly, we were creating work that we were genuinely proud of. Our campaigns were being recognized by industry publications, not for their glossy production values, but for their authentic connection with audiences and their measurable impact on client businesses. That's when Margaret reached out. I was in the middle of a creative session with the team when my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message from my former manager. The subject line read, "Potential collaboration opportunity." I almost deleted it without reading the contents, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Maya," the message began. "I've been following the success of Authentic Collective, and I'm impressed with what you've built. I'm currently exploring new career opportunities and wondered if you might have any openings for someone with my experience in DAO, brand management and client relations. I think my corporate background could bring valuable structure to your growing agency. Would you be open to discussing this over coffee?" I stared at the message for several minutes, reading it multiple times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Margaret Whitfield, the woman who had told me that creativity had no place in professional marketing, was asking me for a job. The same person who had questioned my business acumen was now suggesting that her corporate experience could benefit the agency I had built from nothing. I showed the message to Jessica, who had heard plenty of stories about my time at Sterling Associates. Her reaction was immediate and visceral. "Are you kidding me? This is the woman who told you that being emotional and creative was unprofessional. The one who said you'd be back begging for your job within 6 months." "The very same," I replied, still processing the surreal nature of the situation. "What are you going to do?" I thought about it for the rest of the day. Part of me wanted to ignore the message entirely, to let Margaret wonder whether I'd even seen it. Another part of me was curious about what had happened at Sterling Associates that had led her to reach out. But mostly, I felt like this was an opportunity to have a conversation that 6 months ago would have been impossible. I responded to her message, agreeing to meet for coffee, but making it clear that I was primarily interested in understanding her perspective on the industry changes we'd both witnessed. I suggested we meet at a cafe near my office, in the heart of the arts district where Authentic Collective had planted its flag. Margaret arrived at the coffee shop looking less polished than I remembered. Her usually perfect corporate appearance seemed slightly frayed around the edges, and there was something in her demeanor that suggested she wasn't approaching this conversation from a position of strength. We exchanged polite greetings and found a table in the corner where we could talk privately. "First of all," she began, "I want to acknowledge that I was wrong about your business prospects. What you've built with Authentic Collective is impressive, and I clearly underestimated your entrepreneurial abilities." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. I wasn't interested in making this conversation easy for her. "The truth is, things have been challenging at Sterling Associates since you left. We lost the Zenith Wellness account shortly after you resigned, and Sarah Chen made it clear that she was disappointed with our creative direction. That started a pattern of client dissatisfaction that we've been struggling to address." End quote. "What kind of pattern?" I asked, genuinely curious about how my former employer was handling the changing landscape of marketing expectations. Margaret sighed, looking uncomfortable. "Clients are asking for more authentic, emotionally resonant campaigns. They want the kind of creative approach that you were advocating for. But our team doesn't have the skills or the mindset to deliver that kind of work. We've been losing accounts to smaller agencies and freelancers who can offer more personalized, creative solutions." The irony was almost too perfect. Sterling Associates was failing because they couldn't adapt to the same market trends I'd been trying to address when I worked there. The emotional and off-brand approaches that Margaret had dismissed were exactly what clients were demanding. "So you're looking to transition away from corporate marketing?" I asked. "I'm looking to learn from people who understand the direction the industry is moving," she replied. "I realized that my management style and my approach to creative work were limited. I was so focused on maintaining control and avoiding risk that I couldn't see the opportunities in front of us. Working with you and your team could help me develop a more contemporary understanding of effective marketing." I studied her face, trying to gauge her sincerity. There was something humbling about watching someone who had once held power over my career now asking to learn from me. But I also knew that people don't change their fundamental approaches to work overnight, especially when those approaches had been successful for years. "Margaret, I appreciate your honesty about the challenges at Sterling Associates, and I'm glad you recognize that the industry is changing. But I have to ask, what makes you think you'd be a good fit for Authentic's Collective? Our entire philosophy is built around emotional connection and creative risk-taking. Those are the exact things you criticized when I worked for you." She paused, clearly having anticipated this question. "I've been doing a lot of reflection over the past few months, watching successful agencies like yours, studying the campaigns that are actually connecting with audiences, trying to understand why our traditional approaches aren't working anymore. I realized that I was so afraid of failure that I was guaranteeing mediocrity. That's a significant realization," I said. "But understanding the problem intellectually is different from being able to implement solutions practically. Our work here requires a willingness to be vulnerable, to take creative risks, to trust that authentic connection is more valuable than corporate safety. Based on our history, I'm not sure you'd be comfortable with that approach. Margaret leaned forward, her expression more earnest than I'd ever seen it. Maya, I know I have to earn the right to be part of what you've built here. I'm not asking you to forget our history or to trust me immediately, but I am asking for a chance to prove that I can evolve, that I can contribute to the kind of work you're doing without trying to change it back into something safe and boring. I found myself in the strange position of having significant power over someone who had once controlled my professional fate. The temptation to enjoy her discomfort was strong, but I also recognized an opportunity to demonstrate the kind of leadership I wanted to model at Authentic Collective. If you're serious about learning a different approach to marketing, I'd be willing to consider a probationary consulting arrangement, I said finally. Not a permanent position, but a project-based collaboration where you could observe our process and contribute where appropriate. It would give us both a chance to see whether your management style can adapt to our creative culture. Margaret's relief was visible. I would be grateful for that opportunity. What kind of project did you have in mind? We're working with a nonprofit organization that provides job training for formerly incarcerated individuals. They need help communicating their mission in a way that builds empathy and support rather than pity or judgment. It's exactly the kind of emotionally complex project that requires the authentic approach you've said you want to learn. Are you interested in tackling something that challenging? Yes, she said without hesitation. That sounds like exactly the kind of work I need to understand better. We agreed on a 4-week consulting arrangement where Margaret would work with our team on the nonprofit campaign. She would attend our creative sessions, contribute to strategic planning, and help with client communication, but she wouldn't have management authority over any team members. It was a chance for her to learn our methods while proving that she could add value without undermining our creative process. The first week was awkward for everyone involved. My team knew the history between Margaret and me, and they watched our interactions with barely concealed skepticism. Margaret clearly felt out of her element in our collaborative, informal work environment. She kept asking about approval processes and brand guidelines that didn't exist, trying to impose structure on a creative process that thrived on flexibility and intuition. The breakthrough came during our second client meeting with the nonprofit organization. Marcus Johnson, the program director, was sharing stories about participants in their job training program, and Margaret asked a question that surprised everyone. What do you wish people understood about the individuals you work with? Not their circumstances, but who they are as people. It was exactly the kind of question that opened up authentic storytelling opportunities. Marcus talked about the resilience, creativity, and determination of people who had been written off by society, about their dreams for their families and their communities, about the skills and perspectives they brought to employers who were willing to give them a chance. Margaret listened intently, taking notes not just on strategic insights, but on emotional details that could inform our creative approach. After the meeting, she turned to me and said, "I think I'm beginning to understand what you mean by authentic connection. It's not about manipulating emotions. It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone involved in the story." Over the following weeks, Margaret proved that she was capable of significant professional growth. She learned to ask better questions, to listen more carefully to client needs, and to support creative concepts even when they made her uncomfortable. More importantly, she began to understand that effective marketing wasn't about controlling the message, but about facilitating genuine connections between brands and audiences. The nonprofit campaign we developed together exceeded everyone's expectations. Instead of focusing on statistics about recidivism or employment rates, we created a series of short documentaries featuring program participants talking about their goals, their challenges, and their hopes for the future. The tagline was, "Second chances, first opportunities," and the content emphasized the value that formerly incarcerated individuals brought to workplaces and communities. The campaign generated significant media attention, increased donations to the organization by over 400%, and most importantly, connected dozens of program participants with employers who were impressed by their stories and their skills. Margaret's contribution to the project's success was undeniable. Her corporate experience helped us navigate complex messaging challenges, and her evolving understanding of authentic storytelling added depth to our strategic approach. At the end of the 4-week collaboration, I offered Margaret a permanent position as Senior Strategic Consultant at Authentic Collective. It wasn't the management role she'd held at Sterling Associates, but it was a chance to continue learning and growing while contributing to work that actually mattered. "I know this isn't the career path I would have chosen 6 months ago," she told me during our final meeting. "But it's the career path I need now. Working here has reminded me why I got into marketing in the first place. I wanted to help businesses connect with people, not just manipulate them into buying things." Margaret's transformation wasn't complete overnight, and there were still moments when her old instincts toward control and risk aversion surfaced. But she was genuinely committed to learning a different way of working, and her corporate experience proved valuable in helping Authentic Collective scale without losing its creative soul. A year after Margaret joined our team, Authentic Collective had grown to 15 employees and was being recognized as one of the most innovative marketing agencies in Los Angeles. We were featured in industry publications not just for our creative work, but for our collaborative culture and our commitment to authentic brand storytelling. Most importantly, we were working with clients who shared our values and were creating campaigns that actually made a positive difference in people's lives. The success of Authentic Collective proved something that I'd always believed but had never been able to demonstrate in a corporate environment. Creativity and business success aren't opposing forces. When you create authentic connections between brands and audiences, when you tell genuine stories that resonate with people's real experiences, you generate results that go far beyond traditional marketing metrics. You build loyalty, trust, and community around the businesses you represent. Looking back on my journey from frustrated corporate employee to successful agency owner, I realized that Margaret's dismissive comment about creativity not belonging in professional environments was actually the catalyst I needed to discover my true potential. Her attempt to limit my creative expression forced me to find spaces where authenticity was valued and rewarded. The most satisfying aspect of building Authentic Collective wasn't the financial success or the industry recognition, though both were deeply gratifying. It was the opportunity to create a work environment where creativity and business strategy could thrive together, where team members were encouraged to bring their whole selves to their work, and where clients became collaborators in telling stories that actually mattered. Margaret's evolution from corporate gatekeeper to creative collaborator demonstrated something important about the marketing industry's ongoing transformation. The old models of top-down message control and risk-averse brand management are being replaced by approaches that prioritize authenticity, vulnerability, and genuine human connection. Agencies and professionals who can't adapt to this shift are being left behind, while those who embrace it are finding unprecedented opportunities for meaningful work and sustainable success. 3 years after leaving Sterling Associates, I received an email from Sarah Chen, the client whose campaign had been the catalyst for my departure from corporate marketing. Zenith Wellness had grown from a small local business to a regional brand with locations across California, and Sarah attributed much of their success to the authentic marketing approach we developed together. "That first campaign you created taught us that our brand wasn't about selling fitness memberships," she wrote. "It was about creating community around authentic wellness. Every marketing decision we've made since then has been guided by that understanding. You didn't just help us grow our business, you helped us discover who we actually are as a brand." That email captured exactly what I'd been trying to achieve with Authentic Collective, marketing that goes beyond selling products or services to help businesses discover and communicate their authentic purpose. It's work that requires courage, creativity, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But it's also work that creates lasting value for everyone involved. As I write this story, Authentic Collective continues to grow and evolve. We're working with clients ranging from innovative startups to established nonprofits, all united by a commitment to authentic brand storytelling. Our team has grown to include strategists, creatives, and consultants who share our belief that marketing can be a force for positive change in the world. Margaret remains an integral part of our team, and her journey from corporate control to creative collaboration serves as a reminder that professional growth is always possible, even when it requires abandoning approaches that once seemed essential to success. Her willingness to admit her mistakes and learn new methods has made her one of our most valuable team members. The marketing industry will continue to evolve, with audiences becoming increasingly sophisticated about detecting and rejecting inauthentic brand communications. Agencies and professionals who embrace this reality and develop genuine expertise in authentic storytelling will thrive, while those who cling to outdated approaches will struggle to remain relevant. For anyone working in a creative field who feels constrained by corporate environments that don't value innovation or authenticity, my story demonstrates that alternative paths are possible. Building your own agency or freelance practice isn't easy, but it's achievable when you're willing to take calculated risks and commit fully to your creative vision. The phrase, "This isn't a place for creatives," that once felt like a professional death sentence became the foundation for building something much more valuable than any corporate job could have provided. Sometimes the most limiting beliefs people hold about your potential become the very catalysts you need to discover what you're truly capable of achieving. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the continuing evolution of Authentic Collective and the broader transformation of the marketing industry toward more human-centered approaches. The work we're doing proves that creativity and business success are not just compatible, but mutually reinforcing when approached with authenticity and strategic insight. The most rewarding aspect of this journey has been the opportunity to create meaningful work alongside talented people who share a commitment to authentic brand storytelling. Every campaign we develop, every client relationship we build, and every team member we hire is guided by the belief that marketing can be a force for positive change when it prioritizes genuine human, connection over manipulation or control. That belief, born from frustration with corporate limitations and nurtured through years of independent creative work, has become the foundation for a business that continues to grow and evolve while staying true to its core values. It's proof that creativity doesn't just belong in professional environments. It's essential for any business that wants to create lasting connections with the people it serves. The unexpected consequences of our success began manifesting in ways I never anticipated. Industry publications started featuring our unconventional approach to team management, highlighting how we'd created a workplace culture that prioritized creative fulfillment alongside business objectives. Harvard Business Review reached out for an interview about our hybrid model of strategic consulting and artistic expression, and suddenly I found myself being invited to speak at marketing conferences across the country. Standing on stage at the National Marketing Summit in Chicago, addressing an audience of traditional agency executives and corporate marketing directors, I realized how far the conversation had shifted since my days at Sterling Associates. The questions from the audience weren't skeptical challenges to our methods, but genuine inquiries about implementation strategies. People wanted to know how to transform their own organizations, how to hire for creativity rather than compliance, and how to measure success beyond traditional metrics. After my presentation, a woman in her 30s approached me during the networking break. She introduced herself as Amanda Torres, a creative director at a major advertising firm in New York. Her story felt like an echo of my own experience, complete with a manager who dismissed her ideas as too experimental and a corporate culture that rewarded safe mediocrity over innovative thinking. "I've been following Authentic Collective's work for months," she said, her voice carrying a mix of admiration and desperation. "Every campaign you create is exactly what I've been trying to convince my leadership to let me develop. But every time I propose something authentic, something that actually connects with real people, I get told it's too risky for our client base. How do you convince corporate clients to trust creative vision?" Her question struck at the heart of something I'd been thinking about as our agency continued to grow. We'd succeeded by working primarily with entrepreneurs and small businesses who are naturally more open to creative risks. But could our approach work with larger, more traditional corporations that had decades of conservative marketing practices embedded in their decision-making processes? "The truth is," I told Amanda, "we haven't cracked the corporate code yet. Most of our clients are business owners who make their own decisions about marketing direction. They're not answering to shareholders or boards of directors who might prioritize brand safety over creative innovation. But that's actually the next challenge we're considering tackling." Amanda's eyes lit up with possibility. What if there was a way to bridge that gap? What if someone could help corporate clients understand that authentic marketing isn't just more engaging, it's actually less risky because it builds genuine loyalty instead of superficial brand awareness? Our conversation planted a seed that would eventually grow into Authentic Collective's most ambitious expansion. Amanda joined our team 6 months later, bringing with her not just exceptional creative skills, but also insights into corporate psychology that none of us had possessed. She understood the language of risk management and ROI projections that corporate executives responded to. And she could translate our creative philosophy into business terms that made sense to traditional decision makers. Her first major project was with Meridian Financial, a regional bank that had been losing market share to online financial services and credit unions that offered more personalized customer experiences. The bank's marketing had been typical financial services advertising: stock photos of diverse families, generic messaging about trust and security, and promotional offers that felt interchangeable with every kind. Other banks' campaigns? Amanda proposed a radical departure from their established approach. Instead of talking about the bank's services, she suggested we tell stories about the customer's dreams and how financial stability enabled them to pursue those dreams. The campaign concept was called Your Story, Our Support, and it featured real customers sharing genuine stories about their financial goals and the specific ways Meridian had helped them achieve those objectives. The bank's marketing director, Robert Kim, was initially skeptical. "Banking is a conservative industry," he explained during our first strategy meeting. "Our customers want to feel secure and confident in our stability. I'm not sure that emotional storytelling aligns with our brand positioning. Amanda had anticipated this objection. She presented research showing that financial services customers, particularly millennials and Gen Z, were increasingly choosing banks based on values alignment and personal connection rather than just rates, fees. She demonstrated how credit unions were gaining market share specifically because they offered more authentic, community-focused banking experiences. We're not suggesting you abandon your commitment to security and stability, Amanda explained. We're proposing that you communicate those values through authentic customer stories rather than generic corporate messaging. When people see real customers achieving real goals with your support, they don't just trust your services, they trust your commitment to their success. The campaign development process was unlike anything Meridian had experienced before. Instead of focusing on product features and competitive advantages, we spent weeks interviewing customers about their financial journeys. We heard stories about first-time homebuyers navigating the complex mortgage process, small business owners securing loans to expand their operations, and young parents saving for their children's education while managing student debt. Each story became the foundation for a piece of content that showed how Meridian's financial services weren't just transactions, but partnerships in people's life goals. The campaign included short documentary-style videos, social media content that sparked conversations about financial wellness, and even a podcast series where customers shared financial advice with each other. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Customer acquisition increased by 60% within the first quarter of the campaign launch. More importantly, customer retention improved significantly, with new account holders demonstrating much higher engagement with the bank's services. The campaign won several industry awards, but more significantly, it proved that authentic marketing could work even in highly regulated, traditionally conservative industries. The success of the Meridian financial campaign opened doors to corporate clients that had previously seemed inaccessible. Technology companies began reaching out, asking us to help them communicate their values in ways that went beyond product specifications and feature lists. Healthcare organizations wanted to explore how authentic storytelling could improve patient engagement and trust. Even government agencies started inquiring about our approach to public communication and community engagement. Each new client brought unique challenges that pushed our team to develop new skills and approaches. Working with a medical device manufacturer required us to navigate FDA regulations while still creating emotionally resonant content. Partnering with a renewable energy company meant learning about complex environmental science while finding ways to make climate change solutions feel accessible and hopeful, rather than overwhelming and guilt-inducing. The growth of our corporate client base necessitated another major expansion of our team. We hired specialists in compliance and regulatory communication, brought on board data analysts who could translate our creative successes into business metrics that corporate executives understood, and recruited account managers who could navigate complex organizational hierarchies while protecting our creative vision. Margaret's role evolved during this period as well. Her corporate experience became invaluable when working with traditional business clients who needed more structured communication processes and formal approval procedures. She developed into a bridge between our creative team and corporate decision-makers, translating innovative concepts into language that resonated with risk-averse executives while ensuring that our authentic approach remained intact. The tension between creativity and corporate requirements led to some of our most interesting projects. A pharmaceutical company approached us about marketing a new depression medication, presenting us with the challenge of discussing mental health in a way that was both medically accurate and emotionally supportive. Traditional pharmaceutical advertising tends to focus on symptoms and side effects, creating content that feels clinical and sometimes even frightening to potential patients. Our team developed a campaign called "The Conversation Starts Here" that focused on reducing stigma around mental health treatment rather than promoting the specific medication. We created content that encouraged people to talk openly about depression with their healthcare providers, featuring real patients and mental health professionals discussing the importance of seeking help and exploring treatment options. The pharmaceutical company's legal team initially balked at our approach, worried that focusing on mental health awareness rather than product benefits would reduce the campaign's effectiveness. But our research showed that patients were more likely to discuss treatment options with their doctors when they felt supported and understood rather than marketed to. The campaign generated significant positive response from both healthcare providers and patients, while also achieving the client's business objectives. These corporate successes brought new challenges that tested our agency's commitment to authentic marketing. Larger clients meant bigger budgets and higher stakes, but they also meant more complex approval processes and greater pressure to deliver measurable results. We had to develop new systems for maintaining creative integrity while satisfying corporate requirements for documentation, compliance, and risk management. The most significant test of our values came when a major fast food chain approached us about rebranding their image following a series of public relations challenges related to labor practices. Environmental impact. The company wanted to launch a campaign that would improve their public perception without necessarily changing their business practices. This was exactly the kind of project that Authentic Collective had been founded to avoid. The client was asking us to create the appearance of authenticity without the substance, to use our reputation for genuine storytelling to whitewash corporate problems that required actual solutions rather than just better marketing. After extensive team discussions, we declined a project. The decision cost us a significant amount of potential revenue, but it reinforced our commitment to working only with clients who were genuinely committed to positive change rather than just positive publicity. The incident became a defining moment that helped us articulate our values more clearly and develop better screening processes for potential clients. Word of our principled stance spread through industry networks, paradoxically leading to more high-quality client inquiries. Businesses that were genuinely committed to improvement and authentic communication sought us out specifically because they knew we wouldn't compromise our standards for financial gain. Our reputation for integrity became as valuable as our reputation for creative excellence. The agency's growth trajectory continued accelerating, but success brought new pressures that I hadn't anticipated when I first started freelancing from my apartment. Managing a team of 25 people required skills that weren't necessarily related to creative work or marketing strategy. I found myself spending more time in administrative meetings and less time working directly on campaigns, a shift that initially felt like a betrayal of my original vision. Jessica, who had been with the agency since the early days, became instrumental in helping me navigate this transition. She had grown from a junior designer into our creative director, and her perspective on maintaining our artistic integrity while scaling our operations was invaluable. During one particularly challenging week when I was questioning whether rapid growth was worth the added complexity, she reminded me of something crucial. "You didn't start this agency just to create great campaigns," she said during one of our regular strategy sessions. "You started it to prove that creativity and business success could coexist, and to create opportunities for other people to do meaningful work. The fact that we're growing means that vision is working. The challenge now is to scale it without losing what made it special in the first place. Clue. Her words helped me reframe my perspective on leadership and growth. Instead of seeing administrative responsibilities as distractions from creative work, I began to understand them as extensions of the creative process. Building systems that supported our team's creativity, developing processes that maintained quality while increasing efficiency, and establishing values that guided our decision-making were all forms of creative problem solving. This shift in perspective led to some of our most innovative organizational experiments. We implemented what we called creative sabbaticals, where team members could spend up to 20% of their time working on passion projects that weren't directly related to client work, but that kept their creative skills sharp and their enthusiasm high. These projects often led to new approaches or techniques that enhanced our client work. We also established mentorship programs that paired experienced team members with recent graduates, creating opportunities for knowledge transfer while ensuring that our culture of creative support and professional growth continued as we expanded. Margaret became one of our most effective mentors, using her experience with corporate transitions to help new team members navigate the challenges of working in an environment that prioritized creativity and authenticity. The success of these internal initiatives attracted attention from business schools and organizational development consultants who wanted to study our approach to creative team management. We began receiving requests for consulting work that had nothing to do with marketing but everything to do with building workplace cultures that supported innovation and authentic collaboration. 5 years after leaving Sterling Associates, I found myself facing an opportunity that would have seemed impossible during my corporate days. The University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business invited me to develop and teach a course on authentic marketing and creative entrepreneurship. The idea of sharing our methods and philosophy with the next generation of marketing professionals felt like a natural evolution of everything we'd built. The course, titled Beyond Brand Management: Authentic Marketing in the Digital Age, attracted students from across multiple disciplines. Marketing majors enrolled alongside art students. Business students worked with psychology majors on campaign development. And the cross-pollination of ideas generated insights that enriched both the academic experience and our agency's ongoing work. Teaching forced me to articulate concepts that had developed organically through years of practical experience. Explaining to students why authentic marketing worked required me to research the psychological and sociological foundations of our approach, deepening my understanding of why our methods were effective and how they could be adapted to different industries and contexts. The most rewarding aspect of teaching was witnessing students' transformation as they discovered their own creative voices and learned to integrate artistic vision with business strategy. Many of them had been conditioned to see creativity and professionalism as opposing forces, just as I had been early in my career. Watching them develop confidence in their creative abilities while learning to communicate those abilities in business contexts felt like a continuation of my own journey. Several students joined Authentic Collective as interns and eventually full-time employees, bringing fresh perspectives and energy that kept our work dynamic and current. Their understanding of emerging social media platforms and digital communication trends helped us stay ahead of industry changes while maintaining our commitment to authentic storytelling. The academic connection also led to research opportunities that enhanced our understanding of consumer psychology and brand loyalty. We partnered with USC's psychology department on studies examining the neurological responses to authentic versus manipulative marketing messages. generating data that supported our intuitive understanding of why genuine connection created stronger brand relationships. This research became the foundation for our most ambitious project yet, a comprehensive guide to authentic marketing that would share our methods with marketing professionals across industries. The book project, which I titled The Authenticity Advantage: Building Brands That Matter, required me to synthesize years of practical experience into a coherent framework that other marketers could adapt to their own contexts. Writing the book forced me to confront questions about scalability and replication that I'd been avoiding. Could our approach work for marketers who didn't have the freedom to choose their clients? How could creative professionals maintain their authenticity while working within corporate constraints? What systems and processes could help large organizations adopt more authentic marketing practices without completely restructuring their operations? These questions led to some of our most interesting consulting projects. We began working with established agencies that wanted to integrate authentic marketing principles into their existing practices. These partnerships required us to develop training programs and implementation strategies that could help traditional marketers evolve their approach without abandoning everything they'd learned about brand management, campaign development. The consulting work revealed the depth of change that was occurring throughout the marketing industry. Professionals who had built successful careers on conventional approaches were recognizing that their methods were becoming less effective as audiences became more sophisticated and skeptical of traditional advertising. They were seeking ways to adapt their skills to an environment that increasingly valued authenticity over polish, connection over control. Our training programs evolved to address this need, offering workshops and intensive courses that helped marketing professionals develop authentic storytelling skills while maintaining their strategic and analytical capabilities. We created certification programs that validated marketers' ability to integrate creative vision with business objectives, establishing new professional standards that recognize the value of both artistic qual and commercial skills. The ripple effects of these educational initiatives extended far beyond our immediate client base. Marketing professionals who completed our programs went on to transform their own organizations, implementing authentic marketing practices that improved both creative quality and business results. Industry associations began incorporating our principles into their professional development offerings, and marketing schools started revising their curricula to include more emphasis on authentic communication and creative problem-solving. The transformation of the marketing industry that I'd witnessed over the past several years was accelerating, driven by changing consumer expectations and the proven effectiveness of authentic marketing approaches. Agencies that had resisted these changes were struggling to maintain their relevance, while those that embraced authentic storytelling were thriving in an increasingly competitive marketplace. Looking back on the journey from frustrated corporate employee to industry thought leader, I'm struck by how much the initial rejection of my creative vision had actually been a gift. Margaret's dismissive comment about creativity not belonging in professional environments had forced me to find spaces where authenticity was valued, ultimately leading to the creation of something much more significant than any individual campaign or client relationship. The success of Authentic Collective had proven that creativity and business success weren't just compatible, but mutually reinforcing when approached with strategic thinking and genuine commitment to value creation. Our agency had become not just a service provider, but a catalyst for industry transformation, demonstrating that marketing could be both commercially effective and culturally meaningful. As I prepare for the next phase of our growth, I'm excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. The marketing landscape continues to evolve, with new technologies and platforms creating fresh opportunities for authentic connection between brands and audiences. Our challenge will be to maintain our commitment to genuine storytelling while adapting to these changes and continuing to push the boundaries of what's possible in creative marketing. The story that began with a single moment of corporate rejection has become a testament to the power of authentic creative vision and the importance of building professional environments that support both artistic expression and business excellence. It's a reminder that limitations often create the pressure necessary for breakthrough innovations, and that the courage to pursue authenticity can transform not just individual careers, but entire industries.